All right, everyone, you're going to notice a couple of changes going on today. You're going to notice my lighting is better, and I got an intro to play. Every day, I'm just learning something newer and
Hmm.
newer. But of course, you're going to see my ring light sort of like, glaring up my glasses. It's okay. I'm still learning. So thank you for tuning in to the Trish.0 show. This is the show where we talk to all sorts of event professionals and ask them all sorts of questions. And today's guest is someone that really I have loved from the moment I saw her several years ago. She's presented at several of our industry association meetings. She talks very passionately and very knowledgeably about how to, wow your clients, about how to, get better PR for your company. She really is just like this fountain of information, and she's not stingy with it. So let's go ahead and bring on Meghan Ely. Hey, Megan.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
Just like you, I'm a work in progress. I figured out the
Hey.
good lighting in my office. So, like, we're learning too.
I know. It's been one of those things where, my if you go back through, that first week, when I first started in April, and you look at some of the interviews that I did. I mean, you'll be like, seriously, girl, like you like this, like what the hell is this?
Same,
But I
same though.
Yeah, well, you know what? And I found that so, I could have deleted them. I could have deleted the interviews. But A, I didn't want to be disrespectful of the people that I had interviewed. They took the
Hmm.
time out of their schedule to be interviewed. And B, I kind of like the process. I kind of like people watching me going through this metamorphosis. Because who knows where this is going to lead. I mean, obviously we're doing interviews like this today, but
Hmm.
when people start going back to work, this is going to be like a much different format, I envision.
Sure. Well,
um but
do you
yeah.
know what it reminds me of? We're in a casual, especially casual time right now. And there are a
Yeah.
few times where I find myself almost apologizing. Like I'll do a quick video for someone. I'm still wearing a baseball cap and I'm casual because I tried to squeeze in a walk. And I finally stopped apologizing, saying, my brain still works the same with or without the baseball cap. Like my brain's no different if I've got my laptop perched on a cat tree like I do right now. It's the same. It's just wrapped differently. So our brains and the
Yeah.
content is the same, even if the lighting is different. So,
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. But
mhm.
we launched straight into that. But let people know, obviously there, being a public speaker, people there are going to be plenty of people who are tuning in today who do know you. But for those who don't, let them know.
Sure. Well, I thought you did such
Yeah.
a great introduction in your
Oh, thank you.
Facebook post. I mean,
Thank
bring
you.
anyone who brings the cats right into it. I'm like, well, that's pretty accurate. I don't know what else needs to be said. But so
I agree.
I have been in the event industry about 17 years now. In the last 11 years, where most folks will probably know me, is I'm the owner of wedding PR agency OFD Consulting. So we're a small team of highly wedding and cat obsessed and podcast obsessed publicists. So we essentially work with event and wedding pros to get their name out there. I basically about a year or two ago, you mentioned hearing me speak, and what you won't know is my hardest speaking engagement ever was in front of a bunch of kindergartners for my son's like career day, because I was up against like pilots and the police
Oh,
people with cars and stuff. So I had to bring like swag, but I blurted out that I see the best in my clients and make sure everybody knows about it. And that's essentially what we do. So proud NACE member like you, that's how we got connected originally, if my memory serves me.
yes.
We've both been in the same position actually in NACE education. So we share that
Yeah.
accolade. We were both education chair for the conference. And so, yeah, proud NACE member. I'm also affiliated as a international VP of WIPA. As you mentioned, a cat lady. I actually brought this for you and the audience today so I could stick to my brand.
Well, that's our secret connection is that, and I don't think I've ever shared that with you, but I used to be a cat lady to the tune of five cats at
Oh, I did
once.
not know that about you.
Yeah, it was five cats and a dog at one point, and
Wow. It's a menagerie.
yeah, they were all fabulous, but they all graduated. They went to the big college in the sky,
Oh,
so but it was but I yeah I love all things fuzzy and cute and
yeah.
adorable.
I'm an all things fuzzy kind of gal. People always think I'm relegated to cats, but my friend Christy Osborne, I'll take selfies when I'm out with dogs, and I'm like, look, I'm hanging with dogs, I'm hanging with other animals, it's not just cats.
I'm equal opportunity.
Equal opportunity. One time I saved a bee. My son and I saved a bee. Like, it was frozen and we saved it. So I mean, we're not. Yeah.
That's adorable. That's fabulous.
When it flew away after we warmed it up, we like cheered to the high heavens. We were so excited we'd saved it.
Oh, that's so funny. But now you mentioned, you mentioned being a cat mom and a human mom. So, how has that been, I mean, obviously you've always worked in a situation, I would imagine, where, you're either working mobily, from, on the run or from home. So I would imagine that this is not terribly a huge switch or an imposition.
Actually, it's a massive imposition.
Really? Okay.
Terrible.
Flip that around.
It was the opposite of what you said. I actually have an office. So I do have an office that is currently just burning money. Like, I write a check to the people and then nothing happens. Like, I go check on it. I bring all my computers home. That's about it. And so for me, you're right though, that you are correct. I am mobile. I travel a ton typically. So I can literally work anywhere. So where it comes in handy is, like, my husband will see me in the sunroom and I have a laptop, and it's like every neighbor's getting their work done on their yard at the same time, and I don't notice. And he's like, how is someone, how do you do that? And I'm like, I am used to working in like bustling airport lounges. And so that side of it is the same. The weird hours are the same, but other than that, it's terribly different, because I feel very grateful to say this, but we're very, very busy. I'm putting in 70 hours a week, and then I'm doing 20 hours on top of that of homeschooling. And so, which leaves very little time for my Grey's Anatomy addiction. So that's one, but it is because now we are, Travis and I are working, and that's my husband, back and forth on, well, instead of me getting X amount of hours, and it's like, we now have to keep switching off. And I am the only person in my house without ADHD. So it's interesting navigating. So it's a massive imposition / also a great joy to be spending so much time with my son, so we love having him around, but we're like, man, like, when are you going back? But we know for now, at the end of the day, I come from a place of gratitude that I have the flexibility to accommodate being at home. Not everybody, you and I both know, not everybody has that. If I still worked in hotels, I would not have that flexibility potentially at some point. So I'm grateful.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time period, and we were just talking in the green room about how different people are responding, and and the different situations that certain people are in, both physically, financially, emotionally, and certainly working in PR for as long as you have. I have always viewed PR as that sort of emotional component of a business, where, whereas you can categorize, certain things as being, strictly operational, your accounting, your record keeping, your by the books situation. But PR, has always been, that portion of anyone's business, weddings or not, that is focused on reaching out to people, connecting with people. So was that always, now I actually know the answer to that, because you and I have had that conversation, but for people who don't know, has that always been your thing? Were you always on this PR track in business?
Yes, I will. Well, always since 14. So I took a career test, as many of us do. It was my freshman year of high school, and boop, 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 out comes out public relations, and it sounded good. Honestly, you're 14, you're not really paying attention. And as I started looking at colleges, you get that inevitable, what do you want to study? And I would say PR, not knowing what that was, but I had so many people were so positive about it that I thought maybe I'm onto something. And then I actually took the time, I would say by junior year, to really study what that meant. And I had always had a personal fascination with the media. As early as first, second grade, I was making magazines, like out of construction paper, like celebrity rags, like nothing intelligent like New York Times or anything, but it was like, probably National Enquirer or People magazine, which we recently got our first placement with People. And I told the writer, you need to know that when I was 8 years old, I was making People magazine. So this is a big deal for me personally. But anyways, so, did that. But I also felt as I went to school for it, I loved every second I took PR classes. And as I got worse and worse at my math and science classes, it was very clear the path was pushing me towards public relations. But to keep a long story relatively short, I also felt a pull towards events and weddings. Like I think as many people do, there's a sexiness to it. I mean, you look from the out. I mean, now I know differently, but looking at it, it just seemed like a fun place to be. I was definitely fascinated with all of the details. I'm an organized kind of type A gal. And so I decided after school, again, I won't bore you too much with it, but I did jump into the world of weddings and events. And I did about 1,000 events before I went out. And so because it's so funny, I was mainly in luxury, but we also did volume. I know that's a very strange place to be, but I was at a 5-star for most of my time. And we were doing weekday and weekend events. And I got to tell you, as much as I still look back and I think of all those great times that I would grab a really great mother of the bride or whatever, show them the space before anyone did. And those moments really felt wonderful. And to be able to see that along with the team putting it together. But even though I enjoyed that tremendously and everything that came with events, I found that even if we got a mention that was this big in the magazine or newspaper, that filled my cup 30 times more. So nice. I always knew I would head back towards, I know I wanted to go out on my own. I was surrounded by so many amazing event pros over the years who were very successful in their own right. And I thought, well, I really want to go out on my own and do something. But I always got pulled back into PR. I was a part of a local association and did PR at like 23 for them. I just loved it. And so I always knew that I would go back to it. And then it finally officially made sense for me, and 11 years ago, opened the doors during the recession, actually.
Nice. So the last, time we were all sort of, caught in some sort of like, economic upheaval, OFD was born.
It was.
So, and you actually recently, relatively recently to, the scope of your career, also launched, the wedding speakers segment of your business, which was also fascinating to me. So, so how's this, and you mentioned that your business has been getting better for you, like
busier,
really trucking. Busy.
Yeah, things are trucking. I just got back from Cater Source and I genuinely thought, well, we'll see where this happened. And I was putting in 90-hour weeks, which I don't recommend to anyone. Not complaining, it's from a place of gratitude, but I think a lot of it has to do with that launch and that shift. And what's funny, what you said, so what it really was, like how it looked to the outside world versus what was actually going on is a little bit different. So I had been working with speakers for years. I was always doing for a long time, it was client-facing PR, real wedding submissions, people being quoted in Brides.com. That still happens. But about 5 years ago, someone came to me and was like, well, I want your audience. Like you're in front of wedding or event pros. Like I want that audience. And a light bulb went off and it thought to myself, oh, if I could do that the rest of my life, I'd be so happy because there's nobody in that space truly. And there's no one owning that space. And I genuinely enjoy working with program chairs. I mean, you and I have both been heavily involved in this education over the years. I love that process. It fascinates me. So what's funny is a few years ago, I had enough speakers just that I was working with. And I thought, I'm just going to throw it on like a page on my site, like what, because I'm not very public about you don't see a client. I'm one of the only publicists without a client list. And I'm not against people doing it. It's just not my thing to list all my clients somewhere. So I never thought about it. And then I listened to my speakers and people are like, whoa, wait a minute. Who are these people? I didn't know all this. And I thought maybe I'm onto something. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I am, people have hobbies, right? My hobby is buying URLs. Like I go to GoDaddy. Like when virtual weddings went like approved in New York, I bought nycvirtualweddings.com like 5 minutes later. Like I just buy everything and let's see what happens. So I sat on wedding industry speakers for about 3 years before I decided to go out. And some of it was just out of courtesy to the people who were there were some people already with lists of speakers, ones that I were on, and I just didn't want to step on anyone's toes. But once they started to get out of that, but then I also saw and I'm sure you absolutely have seen this, I'm sure, such an incredible amount of people coming out of the woodwork saying, well, I'm an educator too. We're going to hit a bubble at some point. And once I started seeing directories come up where you could pay $100 to be listed for a year, I thought that's great that that's there. And I'll even pay to be listed. but
Right.
I need my people to stand out. So we created Wedding Industry Speakers and launched it the same month. I quietly decided that all retainer clients moving forward, like our real customized stuff, would only be B2B. And we've been doing it ever since. And I think that's what's kept us especially busy right now. I'm sure you and I can both agree, like we've seen a ton of education, some good, some not so good right now. And so I feel it's our responsibility to keep our speakers busy and showing them everything they need to do to remain sustainable during this time.
Yeah, and I think that what the the real takeaway from all of that for for anybody that might be kind of like oh wedding industry speakers, that might not be your thing. You
Sure.
may not need to book a wedding industry speaker, but what that's all about is the extension of branding and marketing. It's
Mm-hmm.
about that each of these people have tapped into public speaking as a branding resource.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like much like we're doing here today, and much like this whole series is about, and that in and of itself has its own sort of intrinsic value. So there's the PR value of generally speaking, for being in a very I don't want to say niche because the wedding industry does really incorporate a lot more than what people think it does.
Sure.
It's a much bigger industry.
Mm-hmm.
But just like a general like a general branding.
Well,
um you know
yeah, absolutely, Trish.
yeah,
I agree with you 100%. And I think maybe I bet we both see it this way, that I think people
yeah,
right now, when you're talking about branding, reputation, we were kind of dancing around it. But during this time, at the time of this recording, you and I are in the throes of COVID, right? And
right,
everything going on. Every state's a little bit different. But I think you can probably agree with me that people are going to remember how we all acted during this. You know what I mean? They're going to remember
right.
that, like, there's some real superstars coming out of the word work, and there's some people that have really disappointed me. Like, we're not really in our safe space, are we? Because this is live, but we're in our safe space.
That's right.
Anyone listening?
It's just you, me, and the
So
cat mug.
just
That's what it is.
you, me, the cat mug, and everyone
Yeah,
watching.
right.
But there are some people who have been disappointing as well. And
Yeah,
so to kind of circle back to that, what I love about our clients is they all, without my prodding, they all want to be to their audiences the port in the storm right now. They are hungry to work with brides.com, Martha Stewart, on the online stuff to
right,
really talk about the future of weddings and being responsible, right? But they also, many of them want to be the port in the storm to be informing their audiences and their peers, come follow me out of this. Like I can help you with
right.
that. And I think just naturally people are going to remember those positive, and it goes back to your reputation, something Kinsey, one of my clients, speaks on much better than myself, but you're right, it does come back to reputation. I think they recognize the value in how they're making people feel right now. They're not one of these people posting on Facebook and we all roll our eyes because we're like, oh, here we go again. It's more positive, if
With the
I'm being
tin
honest.
hats and all of the yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to right because we are live and we don't want to call necessarily certain people out, and and everyone does
Oh,
respond
no,
in their
no,
own
no.
way.
Everyone responds to their own way.
100%.
You never know how you're gonna react in a situation until you're in it. So,
Right, right. And for a lot of people, this is a very new situation. So,
mm-hmm.
a lot of people just have never had to deal with anything remotely like this,
Not
So,
even
so I
like it.
tend to
Yeah.
find people are like in one of two camps that I'm talking to. It's either people who are like, oh yeah, girl, 9/11 and 2008 recession, and I mean that we're not talking about the same thing, but neither of those two situations were the same to each other either.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're really talking about is in all of it is a complete disruption
Yes.
to your life, to your way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So along those lines, we're talking about PR, we're talking about wedding industry, well, speaking in general, and all this sort of like virtual content. You know, uh, do you see any sort of trend happening out there in terms of releasing more and more of this type of content,
That's a great
or
question.
do you think this is going to fall off? Like, do you think we're just going to all get like saturated and then get back to work and be like,
That's
that
an
that was
awesome
nice?
like, I wish more people would ask me that. So thank you for asking such a thoughtful question.
Gotcha.
So you're like, I got it, girl. So what we're seeing is this. Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
good at tracking what kind of content. So at the very beginning, it was crisis, crisis, crisis. Like we're in the now, it's very reactionary. And that's why, I have Christy Osborne with Crisis Communication, Michelle Loretta, Cash Flow and Crisis. Like people were hungry for that immediately. And that's, I went to one of my friends, Caroline, who's a lawyer, and was like, hey girl, I'm going to keep you busy just texting you opportunities, because it's that crisis mode. But we're fatigued from it. So now we're in the era of recovery. Now on the B2B side, it's very much recovery. It's what does it look like on the other side? How can we set ourselves up for success? How can we be prepared? Something that transcends both B2C and B2B right now. So B2B would be, of course, the industry related news, but both of them are, what does the future look like? Right? That's what it's the future of weddings. We just did one with Wedding Wire that was 12 of our clients were in it. It was all about what it may look like. And that comes with its controversy, but we have to talk about it. We shouldn't shy away. But even on the other side of this, so we're seeing a lot of, what does recovery look like? Let's guess. We're talking about micro weddings, right? That just came live on special events like in the last hour. Emily Sullivan wrote on that. And that's what we're talking about virtual right now. That's a huge thing. So you can see we're shifting. We're still acknowledging COVID, but now it's going to be a 50-50 split of evergreen content. And it's going to be also things that are, even if it doesn't have COVID in the title, it's still related to it. Eloping now, marrying later, virtual weddings, of course, weddings from promises. All Seated just came out with that technology to show how people are distancing, and that's going to open a huge conversation for corporate, especially. So you've got that. And then what we're going to see over the next few months is a decided shift where the percentage is going to change, but there's still going to be a ratio. It's going to be evergreen content looking to 2021, and then also things that may not say, again, COVID in the title, but are obviously inspired by that. Because I'm getting tired of it. I'm sure you are too, but it's still relevant, so we need to, and people have different ways of saying it. So now the biggest question is, which I can't answer, is what does this fall look like for media? And it really depends on where we are with COVID. If we get we're in the thick of it now. If we continue to, or get another, where we're not social distancing as much, unfortunately, I think that's going to really shift how the media covers the wedding and event industry.
Yeah, I mean, that's all. It's all such a fascinating time period, and kind of marrying the two. Since we're talking about weddings, marrying the two.
Very well done.
Right. Yeah, segue for the win. We were talking about sort of like the how you behave now as a business. People will remember, and I 100%, like 1,000% support that and say the same thing. I do think that how the businesses should not necessarily be treading lightly, but that they should look at the long game when they're creating policies or doing whatever they're doing right now, creating their messaging. So we're talking about how that looks in the future, but then also about the future of media. There has been a lot of rustling in the wind in this past week. There is a very large, I don't want to name them because I don't want to kind of get into, sort of anyone into trouble or
sure.
The politics of it. But there is a very large search engine company site out there that has traditionally been a very, very much a go-to resource for all couples looking to book vendors or get in contact with planners or venues or people of all sorts. And their business model has been, up until now, traditionally one of offering, free and then paid advertisements. So you could go as a vendor, whatever you're, if you're a florist or invitation, a stationer, and create a free profile with this company. A couple can then find you on that website and, connect with you. So I think we all know, what we're talking about here. And recently, there seems to be this switch in the company's business model where they're going to be eliminating those free profiles where they're, because there are people who pay. There are people who pay for better placement, for advanced placement with the website. And so they're going to be like, well, if you don't pay, then we're just going to keep, we're going to push all the content towards our advertisers. So some people like myself, and I'm like, listen, if I pay or if I don't, if I'm not paying to be listed on your website, and then you decide that you want to shut down all free accounts because you want to favor those who are giving you the money. I'm a business person. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be angry at it because it was free to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
that'd be kind of like being like, so let's like when people get, pissed off at Facebook whenever they change anything. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
do you pay anything to use Facebook?
Amen,
Really?
sister.
Do we have any say in how Facebook's,
No one
gets
owes you
used?
anything if you're not paying for it. No one owes you
Right.
anything.
Right. So that's so talk a little bit about that, in terms
Sure.
of like using, I mean, really what I'm getting at is relying on free resources for PR and marketing versus paid resources
That's
or
a
push
great,
resources.
that's a great, and I'm actually really happy. I mean, of course, we could have a spirited debate as well. And this is all news to me. Actually, what you're sharing, I mean, I can gather where we're talking about. And excuse me, here's the thing: you get what you would pay for, right? And I feel like we're
Yeah,
both along the same
sure.
lines of that. And so I would never blame anybody for adjusting their model. It certainly gives more value to the people who are advertising. So I have no problem with that. But we see that a lot on, of course, the real wedding submission side, where people say, oh my God, I'm not linked. Oh my God. And I'm like, but you didn't pay. Like, yes, you pay for my services, but you didn't pay to be here and all that. And so
Right.
here's the thing. It's less about the pay and not to pay for it. It's more about diversifying how people hear about you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some of that's paid, some of that's not. If somebody out there is on one of these sites, which shall remain nameless, and it's free, and 100% of their stuff comes from that, well, shame on you for not paying, because you probably get like double the amount. But and that goes away. Well, that's on you, and the royal you, I mean, for not diversifying how people are finding out about you. Because when Style Me Pretty, who we're not talking about, when they almost closed several years ago, people lost their minds because they're like, that's where all my stuff comes from. I'm like, well, shame on you, because you should be diversifying how people find about you, because otherwise you're never going to be in a big panic. One time I was in Georgia. I was at Style Shoots Across America. I was in the middle of the woods, and I was like, I'm going to look up my Google rankings. And I had fallen off the first page for the first time ever. It ended up that Google was re-indexing, and I was back on within a week. And I did a Yelp, but I didn't like fall over and die, because that is one way people find me. And so to circle back to your question here, what are your thoughts? I think if you get some free opportunity to get people hearing about you, that's great. But I think you stick to the statistics of how people are going to find you, and know that it's going to be a mix of paid and not paid. Very rarely will anyone rest their laurels just on free opportunities here. And of course, in the question back, is anything really ever free? I mean, those relationships you build, those NACE memberships, and the money you spend to go to those events. And so I would say, at this point, things are evolving. There's all of these places offering free things are going to have to find better ways to add value to the people paying for it, right? It's just like people moaning about Facebook page likes and people not jumping on as much anymore with it unless you pay. And I'm like, well, that was going to happen. So we should stop being surprised by that. So for me, it's all about diversity. I would hope that real wedding submissions are not the number one only way people are getting booked business. It should be SEO. It should be targeted Facebook ads or whatever.
Yeah, right. I mean, diversification in all aspects of your business is really
Absolutely
the way to go, because if you put all your eggs in one basket, as we're finding out now, and the basket goes away.
Absolutely.
I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I can't remember. Were you around for 2008, 2009, all of that? I can't remember. Were you in the infant industry during that time?
I actually started in like the general hospitality and events industry in '96. So
So you remember that time. And I think a lot of us who did too, even though I got my start then, which was easier said than done since I didn't have the overhead I do today. But I really think that the 2008, 2008, I was in college in 2001. So that September 11th impacted me, but not in a business sort of way. And so it really gave me the mindset that you just never know. I saw companies, like good companies, disappear because they had one lead generation, like referral source, and that referral source, whether it was a planner or a venue, went away, changed owners, and that changes you. And I think that people who came to the industry from 2010 on will get that now and understand and diversify more. So they'll pay, they might be annoyed by some of these groups who are getting rid of the, listings, but they'll understand that that's one piece of the pie, or it should be for their company.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's I think everything that happens going forward, is just a very valuable learning lesson. And certainly, since we're talking about like media and to be listed on media, not to be listed on media,
Hmm.
like one of the I've been a long time fangirl and stalker of some of the greats in the industry like Preston Bailey and David Tutera,
Sure.
Colin Cowie, as I'm sure many people have been,
Of course.
who are watching. And I know from observing their businesses for a long time that one of the things that they have utilized to great effect is, hiring a marketing firm to just be like listed, like David Tutera is known for just as much for being David Tutera as he is for anything else that he does.
Hmm.
So it's that sort of, and that was really coming off of the coattails of the celebrity chef culture is the way
Hmm.
I kind of felt about the whole thing. It's like,
Sure.
first we started with the cooking shows, then we started with the wedding shows, and then everybody gets a book, and then everybody, sort of does this thing. So, that, people get known just as much for their personality. So, do you see any, now that we're talking about this sort of like full integration of social media, do you
Hmm.
see a continuation of that sort of strategy in
That's a
brand
great
marketing?
question. I
Yeah,
see a continued strategy for sustainable event pros who look at what they're doing and say, what is it that I can outsource and outsource it so I can continue to do what I love and continue to
yeah,
do what makes me business.
right,
That's what we're gonna see. Now there are always going to be people who are going after not going after the grace, but going after that path. But then the question is it sustainable? And for some it is, obviously. We know some of the greats, but how sustainable is that at the end of the day? And so what we're going to see is continued people, especially now in a gig economy and seeing all these great contractors in different agencies, that people are going to the ones who see that component as essential and may not have the bandwidth to do it themselves or the interest, to
right,
that's me in accounting, right? Like as soon as I could outsource my
sure,
accounting and my finances, I did. And so we're going to see that continued where people will budget for that. And we're even seeing that now, frankly, without, obviously I'm not going to name any names, but we're in very difficult times economically for a lot of folks. I mean,
yeah,
I'm preaching the choir. We all know this. And
right,
so when it comes to that, there are a lot of our clients who've come to us and said, we'll cut other things before we cut you. And it's because they see that the marketing and
fabulous.
the PR, and of course, it's a huge compliment, right? But you're going to see that the people who understand what it does for you. I mean, even myself, I outsource things so I can keep focusing on PR and speaking and the things that I do best.
Yeah, it's it's all sort of like a little bit of a maze out
Yes.
there for for people who who are definitely because people are at different I guess plateaus in their business.
Mm-hmm.
They're either at that level where they're like, I'm looking to scale up. How do I do that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to diversify. How do I do that? So then when somebody wants to then engage someone someone who specifically does wedding PR,
Yeah.
how I guess like it does is that sort of like an a la carte process for you when you work with someone?
That's a great
um
question.
yeah,
Yeah. And I will say I can walk through the process, and I will say too, to your point, just if I may add on something there,
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
well as, we talk about people thinking about what my next step is. And hopefully the right people are pushing back and saying, well, how is that going to make you money? You know what I mean? Like, because we
right,
want to go after that stardom, we want to divert, but hopefully they have people pushing them in that direction too. So they'll say, well, what is that going to do for your long-term goals? Because sometimes things like stardom or whatever, I want to diversify. So I have my own book line. Well, is that going to make you? So that's just something that I just wanted to add, that I hope that they have people in their life who can push them, whether it's a mastermind or fellow NACE members or
right,
whatever that looks like. So what's the process? Every publicist is different. So I'm only going to speak on behalf of myself.
sure,
We've come to a point where we found there are two successful ways to engage with wedding and event pros. So I would say, in general, working with a publicist, I can speak a little more generically for a second, is if someone has big ideas or they have a direction they want to head in. I do destination, but I want to do more international, or I want to be a speaker, because then what they're going to first do, of course, is research their options. Now, there's not even a dozen people who do what I do, and I'm really the only one who does
right,
the B2B side. So people may gravitate towards me if they see the B2B side, but then they may do their shopping around, which I always encourage, of course, as well. And these folks coming in really should have a strong idea of what goals they have. Like it's hard if you start with it. It's just like, right, if you start with a couple, I don't know what I want.
Right.
What's your wedding date? I don't know. What season? I don't know. Well, that's not very productive, right? And then so it's the same thing with a post. He's got to give me some ideas, something to grasp onto.
Have you two met?
Yeah, I know, right? I need something to grasp onto so I can get a better handle if I'm in the right fit. And so there should be a getting to know you period. I'm a firm believer, just like when you would do job interviews, they're interviewing me, I'm interviewing them. We tend to look just like, remember back in the day, I used to work with couples who would be like engaged to be engaged and their date was 3 years from now. And I'm like, yeah, y'all aren't like, we're not booking. We're not going to contract. Like you just get that firmed up, girl. And so but in the PR world, there are other things I'm kind of looking for and listening to see if it's the right fit. Cause I don't want to waste anyone's time or their money. That would horrify me, like to do that, but time is money and all that. So from there, you do that getting to know you period. And so for probably all publicists, once you guys find the right fit, that's where things probably differ depending on the publicist. But for us, it's very much, I mean, again, there's two ways to work with us. That we have a membership program where people literally get thrown in and right away, I mean, they could sign up same day and there are press things coming in. Like I work with journalists who usually work on 25 to 30 different articles a month, and we're putting them in the collective as well as education and using that as a hub of resources for B2C kind of press. And we're talking the more bespoke, which is kind of what we're talking about, right? Yeah, it's going to be I want to be a speaker. I want to do that. Like that's when you head into retainer land, if you will. And again, everyone's different, but I find that we're very strict about the idea of taking 30 to 45 days to really get to know the person, their brand, where they're going. We always ask the all important question, like, but why? Well, I want to be a speaker. Why? How are you going to monetize that? You're not selling anything to the industry right now. Do you plan to? Like, do you like the fact that you can speak at Cater Source or whatever, not pay for the education? Like, is that why you want to do it? Like, just tell me why you want to do it. And then we got to make sure it's a fit. But then we spend 30 to 45 days working, just developing their thought leadership platform. You guys, and I mean that in the royal you sense, you know a lot of things. What do you know that's different from all the other people talking right now? You know, if someone comes to me and says, I want to be number one at sales, I'd say, well, you know, Alan Berg is really, really good at sales. And so, I mean, shout out, I don't work with him, but he's a good friend of mine. I'm like, what can you say different than Alan Berg, frankly, when it comes to that, if someone's straight sales? Sure. Or it'd be like someone wanting to come and speak on, you know, well, anything where you were to get people out there. So you really need to determine with the publicist, like, what can I speak on? What's going to be productive? What's going to lend to the conversation and essentially be marketable? And then what's going to happen for this to be a success? And then from there, engaging with folks. I do it on a retainer basis. So if people work with me, flat fee month to month. I threw hourly out the window years ago. I mean, I'm sure you can, just like me, hourly is like nerve wracking because you're like, well, how many hours did you spend on that? Like, what are you charging me and all this? And now it's, you're in, right? You book with us. It's a flat fee. It's like I'm in your pocket, following you around, telling you what to do, basically. And then from there, you go from strategy and creation of strategy to execution. And then that's when we're representing. And again, everyone's going to be very different on that. But you can either dip your toe in a membership where we can do a little bit of office hours and getting to know each other in real weddings, or we can go full hog, if you will, and really dig into, let's submit you to TSC and Cater Source, Nice Experience. Let's start doing podcasts. Let's see if Trish will have you on the show.
Right. Yeah. And if anybody's paying attention to the calendar, which, I released yesterday.
That was great.
Meghan was hugely, she was instrumental in most of those speakers. I was like, yes, bring all the things. I want all the people on my show.
We're great.
Because certainly we're talking about evolution. And that's the whole thing is, I don't know what this is going to look like in August because my prediction is that most people will probably be going into at least, a phase 1 or phase 2 back to work situation. So, I would envision that the live component goes away, but so that kind of gets into this whole thing. But kind of talking about speaking as an extension of your brand and doing all these things, what I always encourage people to do is that even if you're in an industry or in a segment of the industry where you're like, I don't really know what I have to say. I don't know what I really can do in terms of PR. There's always something creative you can do, even if it's adjacent, or even if it's completely unrelated. And you actually just popped in this week. That's what I wanted to get to today. Right where I'm getting to with this comment. You released something to the industry
I did.
that it doesn't have to do with public speaking.
Has
It doesn't have
nothing
to
to do with
with
anything
PR. It really doesn't have to do anything with anything.
except
But it was great.
my bitter arch enemy, the mason jar. That's what it has to do with. So
Yeah.
yes. So for
Yeah.
the uninitiated here, let me
Right.
know.
Right.
We'll post it in your group or something so people can access it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's so funny because it doesn't. It has nothing to do with PR. It absolutely doesn't. But so for those who don't know, and I don't mind giving the inspiration of where it came. I was in one of my Facebook groups with Publicist Media and Muckrack, which is a really great site for all sorts of writers and things like that. They released a coloring book, and it was a couple weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer. And they used their like little, not logo, but they use their, I guess, not their namesake. It's like a little octopus. Anyways, and the octopus is like working and it's a coloring book. And I think, well, that's kind of cute, but like I could do that so much better. Like I think it would be fun. And then on top of that, as a PR, as a publicist, right? Everyone
Right.
thinks that we've got our megaphone and we're talking all the time, but 90% of the time I'm listening. I'm a talker, but I'm 90% of the time I'm listening. And so anyways, so here we were, and I'm seeing this, and I see on, especially on social, I mean, we are all in a weird spot right now. A lot of my friends are furloughed. A lot of my friends are trudging along, even with a PPP loan, that comes with its own complications, right? We are seeing a new wave of maybe couples in the fall who are postponing. I mean, it just depends. And so we're not in great, and plus my fellow parents who are just pulling their gosh darn hair out right now. We're all just very stressed out, even if we don't have the look of it. I mean, I'm stressed and I seem pretty easy breezy right now, but I'm wearing it. I can feel it. I can wear the coat. I can feel the coat I'm wearing of the stress. And I thought, why don't I do something to we need a little levity. And frankly, I need a creative outlet that's just not what I'm doing right now. And so I thought,
Right.
do you know what I hate? Mason jars. I hate them so much. And so why don't we do something with that? And so what I did was I went ahead and reached out to a few of my Facebook groups and was just very simply like, hey guys, tell me some trends that are like Hall of Fame and Hall of Shame. And just to see if anyone had some ideas, right? And I started getting some great stuff. Donut Wall, Hall of Fame, because even if you're tired of them, they really did make a difference in the industry, right? Hall of Shame, burlap, 50,000 people said that, everybody, because we're so sick of it. And so I went on Fiverr and I found a gentleman who was just very, very good at what he did. And I reached out and I was like, listen, what do you think about this? And so he customized something for me. And God love him, because I put together this like multi-page explanation of what each page should look like. Like exactly, like I want to be inspired by these, but don't do exact replicas, of course, because that's like someone's actual wedding and I don't want to make. And so went ahead and put together a coloring book of the good, bad, and the mason jars. And it's just like this slew of great trends and not so great trends. And I didn't identify which were which because I didn't want to offend anybody, because my mason bar, somebody else could really love mason jars. And I'm not here to offend anybody on that. And so I went ahead and released it for free. Not gonna, at some point, would I sell it on Etsy for like couples or something? Maybe but I wanted it free. Like, I just want to get it out there and add some levity. And people went bananas for it. Like went bananas for it. They all loved it. I had people downloading and like giving it to their kids to color. It was I have adults coloring it, and
it's fabulous.
So, thank you. And so when you go back to how it does and doesn't relate to PR, here's the thing: it doesn't relate to PR in the form, but it goes back to that. I want people to remember when they think back to this horrific time. I want to be like, if they ever think of me, which they may not, but they were like, remember she did that cool thing for us? Remember she did, I've got a lot of associations right now where we've booked about 50 free speakers in the last 2 weeks alone, right? A lot of NACE chapters, got WIPA, things like that. And I want them to remember that we tried our best. We put our best foot forward. We were serve, not sell. Like, I'm not selling anything. I'm giving you a coloring book to take 5 minutes to not think about all of this horribleness going on, right? And so anyways, I think it goes back to reputation a little bit. My goal was for people to have a little bit of levity, to think about something else for another 5 minutes, but it does go back to reputation. I hope people do remember in 10 years, they look back, and I don't think they'll be thinking about me, but they think about it as whole, and maybe they think about, well, she was super helpful during that time. I get to color that burlap, blah, blah, blah. So it was a real great joy to put together.
It works. I mean, I'm always like a huge fan of doing something that, that shakes the tree a little bit. Like one of my favorite
Yeah.
examples of that is years ago. When I was living out, when I first moved to the area, I was living out in Virginia, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a group, that they still meet. They do like this once, maybe it's once a quarter now at this point. But they would put on these sort of like happy hour situations, lots of people. There was a company that sells pest control. I mean, it's not sexy. It's not,
The opposite of sexy.
right, totally. There's going to be, you would be hard pressed to find anything really, memorable about, killing ants and roaches, which
Mm-hmm.
is basically what we're talking about. And, but the company, a few of the women at the company, and this particular networking meeting, was based, on women, like it was a women's networker. They said, well, why don't we give away a Michael's Kors bag, if people sign up for our mailing list and, stop
Mm-hmm.
by our booth. And I thought that, it quickly became one of the top visited booths, of course, because who doesn't want to,
Who doesn't want a
be in that
handbag?
raffle? Who doesn't want a handbag? Who does not want a handbag? Right, exactly. And they would get like, the special limited edition ones. But I thought that was so clever, because they took this
Mm-hmm.
thing where it's like, it doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just gonna make, it's just gonna help you remember us. And
Yeah,
it's just
it's
going to
memorable.
help. It's memorable. It's going to help push out your brand. When it's out there, going to be like, oh, well, did you see that thing where they're giving away a handbag? Who's doing it? Oh, it's the pest control people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that became like its own shtick, really.
I
So
love that.
so it's all about that creative thinking. It's all about that creative
Hmm.
thinking when it comes
Creative,
to
leverage
business.
what you
Yeah,
know. I'm not.
yeah,
I'm creative in a very weird sense, not the way that my creatives are. Like I just come up with dumb stuff and I'm like, "What do you guys think?"
it
And sometimes it
works.
works, it doesn't. But for me, yeah, it's about cultivating a feeling right now. I want to be seen
Right,
as helpful because I am
right.
helpful, but I want to be seen as giving as much information as I can, giving levity, giving. You and I were talking in the green room about this. Is one of the things we're doing with no anticipation of anything coming back on this is uh, so we've been doing, my son and I put together History of Cats webinar, and I wrote a bunch of event pros. I was like, hey, do you have kids between the ages of like 5 and 8? I'll teach them about cats for 45 minutes. Just make sure they have a piece of paper with them and a pen or crayon or something, and I'll do it. And then Oliver and I gave this ridiculous webinar where I think he interrupted 57 times. It was really funny. Like I thought I was cracking up. But then we also do a Lego club. 4 o'clock every
Fabulous.
Tuesday, Thursday. And there's some event pro kids from all over the country in that thing. I'm going to get nothing out of it other than the fact that I enjoy doing it. My husband actually runs it at his insistence now most of the time, but I just want to be seen. I just want people to know I'm here to help, and I want to be seen as helpful. And I don't expect anything out of it. And I hope more people adopt that. And that's what the coloring book's all about. Like, I'm just doing it. It's just for
Right.
fun.
It's
I
it's for
don't know.
fun, it's just to help you out.
Enjoy.
Yeah,
Here's the thing is,
exactly.
and I'm sure you being a longtime veteran as well is of the industry has given me so much more than I could ever have. The support, everything.
Right.
And not to get all like, because then I'll get all choked up, and we don't need that.
Yeah,
Is the
that's right.
industry has given me 17 years of good years in support,
Right.
and if I can't return the favor now, then what does that say of me? And I hope people will see it like that too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think that
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you just have to, and even if you're not kind of like, looking at this from a servant's heart or from a giving heart,
Mm-hmm.
just remember that you're going to come out of this. You will come
Yeah,
out of this. We're all going to come out of this
we're all
in
going to come
some
out of this.
in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So how people view you or view your business or view whatever it is you're doing at this point in time, it matters. It's
Mm-hmm.
going, it's all an extension. So you're either out there trying to put out positivity and positive messaging out there on your behalf and on behalf of the industry, or you're not. You know,
And may I add to that for a second? Is I
yeah,
should say too, I'm not trying to be a Pollyanna here. I mean, there are
no,
days like I have increased my therapy sessions. Like I don't mind, I'll share that to the public. I have moments where I just go and sit in the garage and cry for a second because I'm so stressed out. Like I'm going to say that to everyone right now. But I'm not saying people can't feel like that and they can't
Right.
be upset about what's going on.
Right.
We're all entitled to it. But I
Yes.
find personally, it's not a productive conversation in business. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's why I have my besties. That's why I have my family. That's why I have other people I can go to and say, I'm stressed about this. And I create those and I separate the line between jumping on Facebook or jumping on Instagram or whatever and moaning about that. So, you know what I mean? So I guess I want to say I hope people, when they walk away from what I feel like has been a very productive talk, they know that, it's not always about reputation. Like, you can feel the way you feel and be unhappy and upset,
Yeah.
and you can own that. But it's not like how productive is it to put it out there in a business sense? Like, it's not. I'd rather channel the positivity right now where I can realistically. And listen, Trish, there are days I just don't feel like it. Like, if I was having a really rough day, I'm probably not going to go stick that coloring book out there. But you know what I mean? Like, it has to be appropriate. But yeah, so it's not a perfect day every day. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure people understood it's okay to be upset during this time, because I myself, Meghan Ely, has moments of unhappiness here. I just don't feel like it's something that needs to permeate my business.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you there because
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of those things where, I kind of liken that type of, I guess, movement towards your business, or I guess sort of strategy in your business. It's kind of like when you're in a relationship with someone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're, if you are in a relationship with someone, and you have, like, let's say, a couples fight, as all couples do. I don't care
Yes.
who you are.
You're
You're
lying if
going
you
to
say you
have.
don't.
Right, right, right. There's always going to be like a sour patch, but if you
Mm-hmm.
walk into work and and all you tell your coworkers are about are these fights that you all continuously have, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't share the happy moments, the great things you all did for each other, because we're not inclined to share those. We're not
Mm-hmm.
inclined. We're inclined to keep those things to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Those happier moments. Then all they're going to remember is, like, oh, you and your lousy husband, you and your
Yeah, I've
lousy
just
partner.
never, and of course, everyone, and gosh, we could go on another hour about
I
this,
know.
but when
Yeah,
it comes
same.
to PR and marketing and branding and all this stuff, one of the decisions that event pros, especially those who work for themselves, this is a little
Yeah,
different than those who work for
sure.
venues or things, like, because I've been there, but there is a point, which is so funny, because if you're a dentist or an accountant, you never have to make this decision, but in the event world, we're hospitable, we're touchy-feely, we're all the things, right? And so we
Right.
have to make a decision early on. Where does my personal story begin and end as it relates to my business brand? For me, people know I love cats, right? I just cannot help it. It's a big part of our philanthropy. And my cats keep showing up in webinars. I cannot help that. But there's a lot of personal things in personal feelings. I chose very early on that I was not going to be someone who shares every second of my life with people. But that's okay. There are other people who make the decision to overshare their life. And you know what? It works for them. But we all have to make that decision on our own.
Yeah, it's all a very, you're right. It's all a very personal decision, and
Yeah.
and that's what we're really talking about is, you don't have to. You
Mm-hmm.
you don't have
Really,
to.
John. I'm a good example of that. I'm a good,
Yeah.
you guys see 1% of the rest of it.
Right. Right, exactly. Well, right. And it's I've had that conversation repeatedly with, friends and frienders in the industry, where we're talking about, like, oh, I don't want to be one of those girls, and we're always talking about what diaper they're using, and for the kids or anything. Like, I'm like, well, you don't have to do any of that stuff.
You don't have to.
You
You
don't have
can, you don't have
to.
to though. Yeah. And just like
You know.
here, you can feel what you feel about
Yeah,
COVID, and you
sure.
can determine how productive it is to share with the public who might be related to your business. That's up to you. I chose a long time ago that my struggles would be
Yep.
shared with my friends and family, and I would be there for them. And OFD is a place where it's not always positive, but it's productive. There's not a moment. I don't think anyone's ever going to argue that we're not being productive over here.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is, like, you touch on a really important part of that is, it's not that you're always putting out just a repetitively positive message that then
Sure.
sounds canned or sounds manufactured. You do
Mm-hmm.
share some of the challenges, but I think that that's where the line is. Like, you can share your challenges without this becoming an online therapy session if that's what you don't want. For some people, that's, that's part of the process. It's part of their thing. But if it's not part of your thing, then it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, doesn't have to. I've seen people succeed both ways and somewhere in between as well. So, and it all does, to circle back, it all comes back to, that is publicity. That is the, how you're presenting yourself to your intended publics, and you're either using the media, sometimes you're using social media. It all comes back into play.
And that's it. Full circle PR.
It is. I guess it is. But I am glad you brought up the coloring book. I was hoping you mentioned it in the promos, and I was like, I hope
we have to talk about the coloring book and the cats.
Oh my God. Oh, and my cats, which none of them made like a hello today. Hilarious. So I apologize, but it's really, they're a part of it. We have a lot of, in better times in our office, we would have foster kittens come hang out with us. So, I mean, it's a hard part of the job, of course, right? Balancing the kittens in the pitches.
People ask me like, well, why don't you foster kittens? And I'm like, well, that's how I ended up with 5.
Yeah, so, you'll keep them. I got to tell you real quick, look, this has nothing to do with PR, but let me do a quick shout out for those interested too. Because people always say to me, I don't foster as much as I'd like to. Let me say, there are real heroes out there who do what I do times 100 basically. But I said, yes, it's hard because you get these babies and sometimes you're bottle feeding them and it's hard to let them go. But what's the best thing in the world is in better times when people could come to the house. A lot of the people who adopt them are families in the area. So what they'll do is bring their kids over and they won't tell them, they'll just meet them. And of course kids fall in love with them because who doesn't love a kitten or a puppy at that matter. And so then I'm in the room when they say to them, okay, well, this is our new family member. Nothing's better. It's even better than getting to keep it. I'm like, so anyways, it fills my cup more than I can express. So, but yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. Good old adopt, don't shop. I love it. No, I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer that there's so many animals that need to be rescued. So it's the least we can do, is to be able to do that for them. So.
Absolutely. Well, Meghan, we're right at the 55-minute mark, and I know, I want to be respectful of your time because I know, today's a little bit of a crunch for you. So I wanted to wrap the interview today with my one final question. It's the one I'm trying to develop like a little signature here, right? So it's good. It's a good one too. So everything opens up, and you can go wherever you want to go and eat whatever you want to eat. Where are you going, and what are you eating?
Where am I going and what am I eating? Can I literally this is like
anywhere. Like you can hop a plane if you need to.
Okay, so this is whatever it is. So literally we have a vaccine and I can go wherever I want, right? Yes, can we, okay, I just want it because I'm like, I'm not leaving for a while.
100%,
so
100%, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna think about this. There's so many great places, first of all. Can I bring my husband with me? Because I'd like to do that.
You don't have to, but
no, I want to. I want to bring my family. I want to bring my family with me. Okay, do you know where I'm going to go? This is what I'm going to do. And because I do love being in catering for a long time, obviously a great meal. And because immediately I'm like, I would go. My first thought was going to Vegas, to Paris, and to top of the Eiffel Tower, which is incredible, but in seeing the lights and all that. But really what I would do is I go to Ireland. That's been I went 5 times in a short amount of time, or pre-kiddo for work, and made a lot of friends over there. So I'd love to go back. There was a couple of great pubs in particular that I would go back to that had, great Guinness. I swear it tastes better over there. A great stew, great big chunk of bread, and more importantly, surround myself with some of the great wedding pro friends I made over there. And there's there's a bunch of great pubs over there. I mean, there's a million great pubs over there, right? But there's a couple in particular that stand out. And so I'd go to one of those with the husband. We'll make sure Oliver has a good babysitter. I'm trying to be practical here, but that's the meal that I'd want. And it would be that atmosphere with the fireplace and its low lighting and laughter and all of that. I would love that. I would be on a plane in a second.
By all the things.
Yeah, I would do it. So.
Absolutely. Oh my God, that sounds fantastic.
That's a great question.
Thank you. I started developing that early, and I was just like, that that could be my
I figured thing. That might be coming, but I was like, oh God, I should be better prepared. But yeah, for me, it's about the atmosphere too. But there's many great meals to be had out there, of course.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Well, Meghan, I enjoyed this conversation so much.
Thank you so much. You had so many thoughtful questions, and thank you for this opportunity. I love this. And thanks for bringing up the coloring book.
I love it. I love it all.
Yeah,
well,
and of
course, and people, of course, if they want to reach out to you, all of her contact info is, of course, in the description. OFD Consulting. Make sure you reach out to Meghan because she is, I didn't lie. I didn't oversell this. Not in the least. Right? Like she's
hopefully, I don't know. I guess I'll let us know in the comments.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
And of course, don't forget to stop by YouTube and subscribe to my channel because it's a free click for you, and it just helps me out because it tells YouTube that you like my content. So there you have it. So again, thank you, Meghan, so much.
Thank you. Thank
and
you
I
so
hope
much.
that you enjoy the rest of your very busy afternoon.
Thank you. You do the same. You take care. Go color.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm heading out to do. Have a great day.